When examining the challenges and limitations faced by ASEAN, it is helpful to start by comparing it to another major regional bloc, the European Union. The EU is often seen as a model of successful regional integration, with its single market, shared currency for many member states, and relatively unified political voice. However, even the EU has shown its vulnerabilities, Brexit being a prime example, where the United Kingdom chose to exit the Union, revealing underlying fractures in even the most advanced regional organizations. ASEAN, too, has its achievements, having fostered peace, dialogue, and economic cooperation among its diverse member states. Yet beneath these successes lie what some might call giant grains of sand, persistent and deep-rooted challenges that continue to test the unity and effectiveness of the association. One of the most significant challenges facing ASEAN is its immense diversity. Unlike the relative cultural and historical similarities shared by most EU member states, ASEAN is a tapestry of different ethnicities, languages, religions, and historical backgrounds. From the predominantly Muslim populations of Indonesia and Malaysia, to the Buddhist majority in Thailand and Myanmar, and the Catholic heritage of the Philippines, the region's diversity is both a source of richness and a barrier to deeper integration. Cultural and historical differences can make consensus building a slow and often frustrating process, limiting the bloc's ability to act decisively on regional and global issues. This brings us to the consensus-based decision-making mechanism that defines ASEAN. In principle, it ensures that all voices are heard, and no single country dominates the organization. In practice, however, the requirement for unanimity often leads to gridlock or watered-down statements. For example, when it comes to sensitive issues like the South China Sea disputes, the need for consensus means that even one member's dissent, or neutrality, can stall collective action. Cambodia's decision to abstain from voting on the South China Sea issue is a case in point, highlighting how individual national interests can override the common good, leaving the bloc unable to present a unified front. Economically, ASEAN faces its own set of hurdles. While intra-regional trade has grown, it still lags far behind that of the EU. Member states often find themselves competing rather than complementing each other, with many economies focused on similar export sectors. In Vietnam's case, the country remains largely dependent on exporting low-cost, labor-intensive goods, while much of its technological imports come from outside ASEAN. This limited internal economic synergy weakens the bloc's collective bargaining power and keeps member states vulnerable to external shocks. Security issues, particularly related to territorial disputes in the South China Sea, further expose the limitations of ASEAN. Ironically, the organization was initially formed in part to counter the influence of North Vietnam. Today, however, the sense of solidarity and mutual trust within ASEAN appears increasingly fragile. Some member countries, such as Indonesia and Malaysia, have opted for a strategy of strategic silence or avoidance when it comes to delicate territorial issues, prioritizing economic ties over regional solidarity. As a result, Vietnam has often found itself in the difficult position of standing alone in defending its sovereignty and national interests. Complicating matters further is the role of external powers, most notably China. Through economic incentives and diplomatic maneuvering, China has been adept at exploiting divisions within ASEAN, making it even harder for the bloc to take collective action on issues that directly impact regional security and stability. This fragmentation undermines the credibility and effectiveness of ASEAN as a strategic partner for its members. Given these realities, it is clear that while ASEAN remains an important regional platform, Vietnam cannot afford to place undue strategic hope in the bloc as a panacea for its security and economic challenges. The path forward requires a clear-eyed, pragmatic, and decisive approach, one that recognizes both the value and the limitations of ASEAN. Vietnam must continue to engage constructively within the bloc, but also remain ready to pursue its own national interests independently when the situation demands, lest it become caught in the inertia of a weak and fragmented regional association.